This clip will continue on the aggregation pipeline examples based on the movies collection that we're covering in earlier clips. So the previous clip finished with an aggregation pipeline where we have a match stage to eliminate some documents at the start from being considered, then a group stage, and its results get passed on to another match stage, which will eliminate some of the results. And finally, there's a sort stage. So one of the important things to bear in mind when you're working with the aggregation framework is to maybe be careful when you're naming things and be careful when you're punctuating. So in this case here, I've tried to put appropriate labels on the output fields that tell me clearly what's going on. So here what I'm doing is that I'm grouping by the ID column is always, or the ID field is always in each group, in each group, and then I'm choosing the rated field, and then the output where I'm counting the documents is going to be called number of documents per rated category. So it gives it a meaningful name. So anyway, that number 5, that example, I was just grouping by the rated field. So we're now going to go on to a case where we're going to group by 2 fields, rated and something else. So go down to number 6. The question this time is asking us how many movies are on record for each of the following rated category values: G, PG, PG-13, and R, and within the rated category by year for 3 years, 2001, 2002, 2003. So I'm just picking 3 years to avoid too much clutter on the output, really. So what I want to do here is, from an SQL perspective, I want to group by rated, and then within rated, I want to group by year. So, and then I'm counting the movies. That's why the sum 1 is in the group stage. So I'm only considering movies that are the 4 categories that are listed there, the 4 rated categories, and I'm only considering 3 years, 2001, 2002, 2003. So then I'm grouping by rated and by year. And as I said, I'm only interested in those that have where there's more than 40 documents in the results. So that isn't mentioned in the question, actually. Okay. Sorry, I'm only interested in those where there's more than 3 documents in the results. That should be 3 there, so it should be. Okay. Or there's 3 movies. So because I'm narrowing it down to just rated categories and years, the 40 is irrelevant anymore. So I'm just looking for cases where there's at least 3. Okay, greater than 3 or greater or equal to 3. So this clip is going to take the aggregation framework and take it a bit further, where we're going to group by more than one field. So in the previous example, we were just grouping by the rated field. So we were looking for the number of movies for each rated category. And that was the basis of the previous query, or the previous aggregation. And this time, though, we wanted to work on certain rated category values, 4 of them that are listed here, and then within the rated category value by year for 3 years, 2001, 2002, and 2003. So we want to group by two fields from an SQL perspective, 2 columns. So from an SQL perspective, we look at the SQL version of the query first. We're saying select rated, comma, year. And then in the group by clause, we're grouping by rated and year. And then my where clause has 2 conditions where I eliminate, or where I consider only rated values, G, PG, and so on. And I only considered 3 years, 2001, 2, and 3. And then, according to the question, it says show only results for the combinations with at least 3 movies. So that's why I have a having clause, or the equivalent of a having clause, having count greater than or equal to 3. And then I sort by the number of movies in descending order. So what that means is in my initial match, I'm only considering movies that have a rated value that's $N, and the 4 possible values are here in the square brackets. And likewise, I'm looking at a year that's in one of 3 possible years. And again, notice that I don't put a $sign in front of rated or in front of year in the match stage. Whereas you see that there is a $sign in front of rated and year in the group stage. So in the group stage, in this example, I need to group by two fields. So as always, I start off with group ID, and then I have to name my two fields. The first one is $rated, but I'm referring to that as rated cat or rated category. And the second one is $year, and that's referred to as year made. And then my $sum, because it's :1, means we're counting rather than summing. And it's been referred to as num movies rated cat per year. And then obviously it's the same in my match stage then. When the group stage is completed, I amn't interested in any results where the value is below 3. So that's why my match stage focuses on num movies rated cat year greater than or equal to 3. And then the documents generated at that point are passed on to the sort stage. And again, it's the same num movies rated cat year, and it's -1 for descending order. So this example, as I said, is where I'm grouping by two fields. And the names I give them are labels I put on them. You'll see it in the output. And if these labels or field names are chosen carefully, it makes the output easier to understand and easier to follow. So let's just execute the aggregation and see what it generates. So what you can see here is my rated cat. It's R in the first one. And then I have the year med, 2003. Another one, second one is R and it's 2001, and they're 9 and 8. So because we're sorting at the final stage, we're sorting by the number of movies. You see 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and there's a 4 here as well. So anyone with 3 or below is eliminated. So that's what the greater than 3 does in the second match stage. So the important thing, as I said, is if you use good labels when you're naming the fields in the output, it helps you to clarify what's going on. Now, in this case, the sort stage is interesting, where I'm sorting by the number of movies rated cat year. So that's straightforward. But what if I wanted to sort it by either the rated value or the year med value? So the next example will illustrate that. So in example 7, what I'm doing is it's the exact same question, but I'm changing my sorting. So here the question it says is how many movies are on record for each of the following rated values, and within rated category by year for the 3 years in question, show only results for combinations with at least 3 movies. So all of that and that part of the question remains the same. The bit that's interesting, it says, is sort by the rated category. That's the bit that we have to focus on at this stage. And the important part of that is that the rated field is referenced here. It's under the ID. It's in the grouping stage, and it's under the ID. So therefore, you have to refer to it as in the sort as ._ID .rated cat. Okay, so that allows Mongo to sort it by the rated category. If you left out the _ ID there, you'd get an error message. So we'll just run the example just to prove that it works and to prove that it sorts by ID. So I won't clear the screen just to demonstrate the difference. So I'll just copy the aggregation. So in the previous one, as you can see here, it's sorted by the number of movies per year, whereas now I want to sort it by the rated category. So there's 3 rated categories, and when I sort them, it's going to put the PG first, followed by the PG-13, and finally the R. So therefore, the number of what I call it movies for 2001 is 4. For 2002, it's 5. So the PG appears to be sorted within PG. It appears to be sorting by year as well. But if you look at the PG-13, you see the first set of results are for 2002. The second one is for 2003, and the third one is for 2001. So they're sorted just randomly. So all that's going on in this example is we're sorting by the rated category. We're sorting by the rated field. And in the syntax, we must label that as _ID .rated category. So it's just sorting by that field alone. Now, it might make sense, given that we're grouping by 2 fields, we're grouping by the rated, $rated, and within rated, we're grouping by year. It might actually make more sense if we sorted by rated and within rated by year. So that would mean that our sort stage would have to include underscore ID dot rated, followed by underscore ID dot underscore ID dot rated cat colon 1, and then another reference to year med. So in example 8, you see that the question is adapted to, or is changed to include that extra sort component. So in example 8, it says same question as previously, but this time we're sorting by rated category and within the rated category by year. So we need to sort by rated and then rated by year. So this time the match stage, the group stage, and the second match stage are identical to the previous example, but the sort stage now has two fields in it. It has underscore ID dot rated cat and underscore ID dot year med. And that's one of the reasons why naming those fields in the group stage is naming them carefully and clearly will serve you well in subsequent stages. So we just need to execute the query now to prove that the sorting is different to the previous example. So in the previous example, as you saw, it sorted by the rated category, but it didn't sort within that by year. Whereas now in this version of the results, if you look in particular at the PG13 documents, the first one is PG13 year med 2001, second one is year med 2002, and the third one is 2003. So if we contrast that with the previous output from the previous query, we had 2002, then 2003, and finally 2001. So that's an example of how you can sort by some of the fields that you're grouping by. So you need the underscore ID dot followed by the name that you've given to the field in that sort. So that's the end of this clip.